Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Smith, and today we're going to talk about another famous American artist by the name of Jim Dine. He was born in 1935, and guess what? He is still alive and kicking today and making art, so that's pretty cool. He was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and at the age of 12, though, his mom was in a bad accident and passed away, and he had to go live with his grandparents. And they owned a hardware store, so it was pretty cool that he grew up in that environment. And he ended up having a real appreciation for your basic hand tools, and he incorporated that into a lot of his pieces. So early on, he was very interested in art. He went on to art school. In 1959, he was part of a movement called the Happenings. And that was an art movement that was more of a performance-based art that also included the viewer. So that was pretty cool. He's also part of the pop art culture, where you paint everyday items that Andy Warhol did, Roy Lichtenstein, but Jim Dine wasn't really fond of being grouped into that category. He didn't like all of that commercialism that was included with it. But his work is very iconic. He would incorporate simple everyday items, like we said, tools, even bathrobes. And he's most famous known, though, for his hearts in all of his pieces. So we're going to do our own Jim Dine inspired piece of art that will incorporate some hearts. So let's take a look. Here we have your pliers. Again, something that maybe you would not find beautiful, but he found the beauty in it. So it's very interesting that he took something that would just be tossed aside, that nobody would find beauty in, and really created it in a beautiful way, showing the lines and features of it. His hearts are absolutely beautiful. Different plays on color theory that go on in each of his pieces. More abstract version here. Very primary colors and blacks. It just pops right off the page. Some of his pop art pieces, the robes. Again, his colors are fantastic. And one of his other pieces that incorporates a heart in it. So we're going to be incorporating a heart into our piece, and I want you to think about what you want to do. All right, guys, let's see what we need to get started. Always have your handout in front of you. That's going to have the bio information and the reference work of the artist, as well as your instructions. Okay, so we're going to go step by step on this, how we need to get this project done. So we have that. Always have that really handy color wheel for you, because we're definitely going to be utilizing this with different color schemes this time. You want to have your sketchbook and your pencil and your eraser. That's going to be for your rough drafts, okay? One per page. And then you're going to need, for your final, you're going to need your oil pastels, and I'll show you the technique after this. And then you'll need your poster board, okay? So obviously this poster board is going to be for the final, not for rough drafts. So make sure you have that, and remember, dull side up. So we're going to keep it dull in here, and we're going to get that done at the final. All right, so let's go over how we would do our rough drafts. We want to do an inspired Jim Dine piece with a heart. So remember, you want the heart as like that focal point in your picture. So it could be some random hearts, but if you're just going to go that route of random hearts, I want you to really put some thought into it as to how you're going to do your color scheme. Are you going to use complementary colors, analogous colors, primaries? What is it that you're going to do to really make that stand out? All right. And then for the rough drafts, let's go over exactly how we would do that. Now this project requires 2 rough drafts. So you would do 1 on each page, photograph it, put your color scheme on here, and always put your name, okay? Because when I start to get a bunch of photos that come in and I download them and there's no name on there, I have no idea who did that. So make sure you get your name on there, the color scheme, and your picture. So here is what that would look like. Here is a picture, I'm going to hold that up for you to see, of some lovebirds, okay? And so I made the center part of the bird a heart, the top of it, the wings, the tail, everything is hearts, all right? So I've indicated that, and I have my color scheme on here. So if I wanted to go with a really pretty light blue background, and I want this picture to pop, I'm going to go to my blue and choose the opposite color, which would be orange. And I could do those birds a yellowy orange, and it's just going to pop off the page. But if I want my picture to be really sweet looking and subtle looking and soft, I'm going to go with analogous colors. So I go to where my blue is, and I can go to either side. So I can go this way or this way and keep it analogous that way. So really put some thought into this, okay? My second design is a vase with a heart that's growing and some rain. And again, my color is indicated on there. And I did 3 just so I can give you some different ideas. This one is a heart with wings in the sky with some clouds and halos, and I have my color on there as well. All right, so remember, you're going to do your rough drafts during class time. You're going to photograph them, get them into me, and then I will, as soon as I get them, I'll either give you feedback and say, hey, this is good to go, or hey, what about this idea? Add this to it. Good news, my rough draft was approved and I'm ready to start on the good board. So I have my poster board dull side up, right? And I'm ready to start sketching out my final design. So I'm just going to use my rough draft as reference and start to get this on here. And remember, the oil pastels are like a thick crayon, so you don't have to worry about too many things showing on your board. So if you do have some eraser marks, things like that, they will not show as much when you get that on there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my wing on there, get that going off the page, come down. And again, I'm just looking at my rough draft that I made, and I'm just going to get some of the lighter lines in there and just the basic shape of everything first, and then I can go back in and do some more details in there. So I'm going to have that wing coming in, and then of course I'm going to have the one on the other side going off, and get some of those feathers in there as well. Start to get my clouds in there. So as you can see, I'm just going to do a really tighter drawing. I can go back in and clean this up afterwards so I know exactly where I'm coloring and get all my lines in there. I'm going to get the halos in there as well. And like I said, then you can go back in and clean up anything that you need to. My oil pastels. I have my set of oil pastels. If you have any baby wipes in the house, this is great to use to clean your hands because you're using your finger as a blender for everything. And it also works really good to clean off the tips of any oil pastels that get dirty, okay? And then if you don't have that, you can just take some regular napkins and wet them down a little bit and use that. So we want to color and do this on our surface and get a lot of the oil pastel on there. So if I'm going to start out with making my heart red, I'm going to go in, and if this is like a burgundy or a magenta type of red, I'm going to go in and really lay down that color so that there is no white showing. All right, if there is, maybe I'm just lightening up my hand a little bit. So I'm going to get all of that on there. All right. And then I'm going to look at my colors and see that I have a white. And I'm going to add a bunch of white. And I'm going to go over those lines that I just did on the edges. All right. And right next to it. Now, once I lay down a little section like that, I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to start blending in the same direction that I colored. All right, so I just get that little bit of blending going on. All right, and then any little excess pieces, if you're working on try not to work on a carpet, okay, because then you don't want to get the carpet dirty. But you're going to go ahead and blend that. All right, so you can put purple in here, white, whatever you want to do to get that to be blended. And then for my wings, I had put that I wanted them to be gray. So take a look, this needs to be cleaned. So I'm going to clean off that. And then I'm going to take my black oil pastel and just lay down a little bit of it on there, right? Just put a little bit of black on there. And then I'm going to go back in with my white so that when I go to blend that, take a look, I'm going to start to get my gray. All right, that goes in there. And remember, this is oil pastels that we're working with. So the end result is going to be more of a painting look instead of a real tight, crisp, say graphic design look. So keep that in mind when you're working, and you want to fill your entire page, okay? So get everything on there in oil pastel. So I've laid down a lot of the color within the heart right now, but I want there to look like there's some shadows in there. So I'm going to go ahead and take my black oil pastel and I'm going to add some underneath the areas that would maybe show a little bit of shadow. Okay, once I do that, again, I'm just going to take my finger and lightly just start blending that out a little bit. Just pull it out, pull that down. Remember, go in the same direction that you colored. And then notice how full the heart is as far as having all the white covered. Okay, so it should be a thick layer that you could almost be able to scratch off. If you have a very thin layer or you're pushing a lot of it off, you're going to see it be very thin, and you definitely want that thicker look. Just be really careful with your furniture and everything around because... Okay, when I go to do my background as well, I'm going to do that first before I do the clouds or the halo. The halos are going to be yellow, so I have to be really careful. If I'm using the blue, what do blue and yellow make? They're going to make green, right? So I have to be really careful. So when I go to do this, I'm going to definitely get that blue in there. And when you do your sky or any other colors like that, you can do, if you have more than one shade of blue, you can get a couple of shades in there. And then remember to get your white in there as well and get some white going so that that'll make your blues a little bit lighter. And I'm getting right in those areas. All right, so I just do a little section at a time, coloring in the same direction, and then make sure my finger is clean. And then I'm going to go in and start to blend that with my finger. Just enough so that I'm not pulling it off the board. All right. So I get just enough blended there that I can go and do my next section. Okay, I'm getting my sky done, and when it's time to do the clouds, I literally am just going to lay down a lot of white in there inside the cloud. All right, so I've got that all covered, and before I blend it, I'm going to take my blue and just kind of swirl a little bit into those little fold areas of the cloud, and then I'm going to use my finger in that same direction, all right, and blend it around and blend that white in there. All right, again, you want that to feel really thick in there, a little bit of a creamy texture that you want there. And I'm going to go over that part again. There we go. Now afterwards, if you want a really bold look to this whole thing, you can outline it with your black, but you don't want to do a really thick heavy line. I'll show you how to use the end to do a much thinner line. Okay, so I'm going to finish off the sky and then we'll work on the rest of it. Okay, I have it all colored, and what I want to do is have just my heart stand out. So I'm going to take my black oil pastel and I'm going to turn it over to the other side where I really have still a sharp edge on the sides. And I'm going to use that to go in and go around and carefully outline. And again, you just have a nice thin line instead of using that blunt end over here to do that. So I'm going to take and just one time take my finger and bring it around. All right, so that you don't see all the little shavings off there. And I'm going to do that for the whole thing, for just the heart and the wings. I went ahead and put the outline and some little finishing touches on it, and I am all ready to photograph and send it in after I put my signature. All right, thanks a lot, you guys. I can't wait to see what you do.